So, has the Tinubu administration been potentially good news for Nigerians or a political and economic disaster? Can the president's reforms really turn this country around? As stoic Nigerians try to make the best out of the dire situation they find themselves in, those questions are being asked across the country. A recent article by Olusegun Adeniyi, former presidential spokesman under Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, which appeared in This Day newspaper, has been particularly scathing, describing the administration as being enmeshed in a crisis of credibility. That assessment has also been echoed by many other notable Nigerians, including the lawyer and 2023 presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, Prince Adewole Adebayo, who has described the president's economic policies as a recipe for disaster that has left Nigerians in great distress. And according to him, things are only going to get worse. So how does he propose to turn things around before it is too late? Well, for his perspective, I'm joined now on the line from our studios in Lagos by the lawyer and 2023 presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, or SDP, Prince Adewole Adebayo. Great to see you again, and thank you very much indeed for joining us. First of all, do you agree with the likes of Shehu Adeniyi and many others, but Shehu in particular, when he says that the Tinubu administration is facing a crisis of credibility, and that for a man who got to office with a statistically narrow mandate of just 37% of votes cast, he should have risen above himself in order to establish an enduring legacy, but instead he's displaying a kind of impunity. I mean, do you agree with that assessment, or do you have a different take?
Well, there are many perspectives to looking at a government, and the comments made by the author, Mr. Adeniyi, is valid from his own point of view. My point of view is from assessing the government in terms of what the Constitution expects of a government. Because when you are assessing the performance of any person, you need to use as objective a metric as possible. And nothing can be more consensual than the Constitution by which the president was sworn to office. And that Constitution expects the government to be for the good order and welfare of the country. And I think it's not debatable, even for those who are inside the government, that the Tinubu administration cannot say that it has answered to the constitutional requirement of taking care of the people, of governing the land in a way that is for the benefit of the people, and ensuring that we have peace. We don't have peace, we don't have justice, we don't have development, we don't have economic relief. Rather, we have additional problems brought upon the people by the ideological decisions made by the APC government, right from President Buhari's time up to President Tinubu's time. So we have 9.5 years of wrong-headed policies by the APC, but particularly the Tinubu's presidency as a continuation of the APC has even worsened matters in many areas. It doesn't mean that they don't mean well, it's just that the result hasn't shown at all.
Right, and you mentioned the continuity of government, of course, government being a continuum, but Tinubu's people very keen to always say that they've only had just 1 year in office and keen to dissociate themselves from that sort of long tenure that the APC has had. So let's look at the issues of concern during the Tinubu government. For example, the economy that you have dissected many, many times. I've read lots of articles by you and some of the things that you've been saying. Let's start, for example, with reports that suggest that the federal government is still spending trillions of naira to pay for fuel subsidy, but insisting that fuel subsidy is gone, as well as things like a new presidential jet, which was surreptitiously purchased by a government that's imposed reforms that call for serious belt tightening. And are you alarmed, like many people are, that if it wasn't for that Chinese firm, for example, Zhongzhan, impounding those presidential jets, Nigerians might never have been informed about the purchase? I mean, so issues of transparency and accountability still in government business?
Well, there are many things to pack in there. Number one, permit me, with due respect, to disagree with those who say that President Tinubu is not responsible for any problems inherited from Buhari's administration. I will rather take the word of President Tinubu himself, who said that he will continue where President Buhari stopped. So whatever any other person, any other apologist is saying is not as important as what the president himself said as a matter of presidential policy, that he is going to continue where President Buhari stopped. And he was influential in President Buhari's government. He was influential in the policy. He now has inherited it, and they are carrying on the same baton. So let us rest that once and for all. In addition, the issue of belt tightening in an economy is not a problem at all. Belt tightening is required. But what the APC government has done, especially President Tinubu, is tightening the belt around the neck of the people. If you are tightening the belt around the waist, well, that could be a waist trainer and it can tell you how to consume less. But you cannot tighten the belt around the neck of the people, in which case they will not be able to breathe. The things that are going up for the poor are things which are not discretionary. In finance, and in public finance especially, there is something we call discretionary spending. Discretionary spendings are spendings that you elect whether to spend or not. So for a family, in the microeconomics of a family, whether to have food is not discretionary. You have to have food. Whether to have energy, basic energy to live in the modern world, electricity to power your light and power your cooking and all of that, there's nothing discretionary there. Even though one of the ministers was of the view that maybe these things are discretionary, maybe you shouldn't even have electricity on when you go to work, but he's still keeping his job. The other thing you need to know is that educating your children is not discretionary. When you catch a malaria fever here or some other typhoid or whatever, a headache, whatever is the tropical disease that our people tend to have, it is not discretionary whether you should go to the dispensary or a pharmacy or a hospital to take care of yourself. So these things that are not discretionary, like when you get a job, you need to travel to your job. So you need electricity, you need power, you need energy, you need petrol or diesel to locomote to work. If you are a trader, you need to carry your goods. None of these things is discretionary. That is where they are tightening the belt. That's why it is almost unconstitutional the way they are running the government. Now, when it comes to economic choices, the things that the government is spending money on are things which are discretionary. So if a person is being told to be discretionary regarding how much food he consumes, how he educates his children, whether he goes to the hospital or just pray over his headache, if you're asking a person to do that, then you are purchasing aircraft, purchasing other things, which might be necessary for you to use. But there is more discretion in that one. There is more discretionary window in whether you purchase another presidential jet or not than if somebody who has 2 children is going to buy a loaf of bread for them or not. So that is where the economic injustice is there. But my major disagreement with the government is that they're not governing. The government is not governing at all. They are occupying powerful positions, but they're not doing the job of those positions. And how will you know that? You will know that because of the pervasive insecurity in the country. It is with extreme sadness. If you notice my voice, with extreme sadness that I'm talking to you, because the killing of the Sekin Gobil, the Emir of Gobi, Mohammed Bawa, who spent several weeks in the hand of kidnappers. This is a first-class traditional ruler in Sokoto State, of all places, and who was on official assignment, invited by the government to attend the meeting. And on his way from the meeting, he was kidnapped. He was kept in captivity for a long time.
Right.
There was video of him circulating. The kidnappers were negotiating with his family. There was no sign there was a government anywhere. And I'm using him as a point of contact for so many other people who are facing this kind of marauding risk.
Right. Okay.
Traveling around the country.
I'm just going to.
So with that, from that alone.
Right. Sorry, I'm just going to come in there because you've made quite a number of points, and I'm just concerned that time is galloping ahead. Although the points you're making are very, very sound, I have to say. But I need to just narrow it down to whether you think, like some do, that the policy choices that Mr. Tinubu is making are wrong, or just the rather cavalier way that they're being implemented, even, as you pointed out, government officials continue to display a rather ostentatious lifestyle.
It's both. It's both. The policies are wrong-headed, and I've litigated that many times. You interview me before the election, and after the election, I've been consistent in saying these policies are not good. Not only are not good for APC, they're not good even from the way PDP presented it. They're not good the way Labour presented it. These policies are not good, and now we are coming to the realization that these policies are just not good for us. They're not the right medicine for our kind of economic malaise. However, the government itself is, on top of that, quite cavalier and unserious. And in the classical sense in which we evaluate government, it will seem that it's not a government properly so-called. There can be a cabinet, but they're not behaving like a government. You know that the tradition we had was that your party will win an election, and when you win an election, then you will form a government after that. Winning an election does not automatically make you to form a government. So when President Tinubu was sworn in May 29, 2023 at Eagle Square, he had not formed a government. And when he announced his cabinet and sent them to National Assembly and they got cleared, they have not started behaving like a government. There are one or two ministers, for example, Interior, maybe FCT, that are doing quite well, behaving like a government. But the rest, I think, with due respect, especially finance, budget and planning, those folks, I'm sorry, they cannot be saying honestly that they're in government.
Right.
Because
they're
not taking care of, they're not husbanding the economy well.
Right. Okay, but so I mean, you mentioned the fact that obviously we've had you here several times. I mean, we always appreciate the quality of your analysis. What would you do differently if you were president of Nigeria today? I mean, you were a presidential candidate under the Social Democratic Party. How would you earn the trust and respect of Nigerians?
The respect of Nigerians is not difficult to earn. Nigerians are very generous people. However, the people must not be smarter than you. The average Nigerian at home is smarter than the government today because the government is not self-aware of the problems that people are facing. So the first thing you show is empathy. You need to understand you are governing for the people. It's not, the government, you may be businessmen in your private lives, but what you are doing now, you are not doing business. You are running a government. So in that case, the measurement of whether you are doing well or not is how it reflects in the life of the people. And if you cannot help them immediately, you need to be at the same level with them to let them know that you know what they are going through. This government has failed in that one. That's number one. Number two is that long term, you must be able to realize that it's only by using the people to create wealth. That's when the country is going to be wealthy. Having millions upon millions out of jobs, especially the younger ones out of job, is not sensible at all. The third point you need to know is that government alone cannot employ everybody and create all the wealth. Therefore, you have to make sure that the private sector is not failing. Nobody can tell me in this government that they don't know that the private sector is collapsing, whether it's manufacturing, whether in services, whether in agriculture, transport, mining, whatever it is. So they need to address that. Then you need to control your currency. If you are losing control of your own currency, you do Dutch auction today, you do another thing tomorrow, and you are not able to retain value in the currency. And the instrument, number one instrument for fighting poverty is the Naira. If the Naira can retain value, if you can work and retire on the Naira, if you can work in January and use the savings of January to take care of yourself for Christmas in the same year, the Naira is working. That's not what is going on now. If you look at the sense of respect for the sensibility of the people, that is not going on now. People are getting angry. People are annoyed that you are living a very largely careless life. You are showing that maybe you are living the way you will live ordinarily. In my private life now, the way I'm living is not the way I'm going to live when I become president. I'm going to step down because right now I'm spending my own money. I can live my life the way I want. I work for my money. But when I become president, I have to live like the people and step down. I'm sure that I'm stepping down. And long term, your policies must make sense. You must not go out and start irritating people. For example, how do you come out and say a kid who is brilliant cannot go to university because he's not 18 years old? When I entered IFE, when I got admission to study law at IFE, I was 17 years old. So many of these new policies that are bringing out, they don't make sense. So these are all the things that make people to think that this government is not thinking through many of their processes.
Right.
And the life experiences that people have, if it's improved, you will have credibility. It's not a political slur to say you don't have credibility.
Right.
What it means is that people are not following you, you are on your own, even though you are supposed to lead all of us into prosperity.
Right. So in the context of the things that you've just said, you are, of course, as we mentioned, a politician, a former presidential candidate. If it is your assessment that the Tinubu government isn't delivering, I mean, are you planning to join attempts to unseat them in 2027? Or do you think they sort of deserve another 4 years in office after 2027 to give them enough time to let their reforms take hold and deepen?
My priority now is to make sure that the people of Nigeria don't suffer. And I will encourage the government to succeed. I don't want them to fail. My intention is not to unseat them now because they're already unseating themselves by their own effort. So you don't even need to unseat them. They are unseating themselves. My feeling is that they don't intend to come back. The way they are behaving, that's not the behavior of someone who knows that I'm going to come back and go back to the people again to explain my stewardship. They are behaving like one chance. We are there now and we are leaving. But the task before us is not to think in terms of election years, because between now and 2027, how many more could be kidnapped? How many people could die of poverty? And how many more industries could collapse? How many more opportunities could be wasted? So I am taking an attitude that is not hostile now, an attitude that is advisory, to talk to them so that when I'm appearing on your show, they don't say, oh, opposition has come again. I'm talking to them like we're brothers. You are running the affairs on our behalf. Please, you're not doing well. Listen to us. There's no rocket science in what you're doing. The solutions to the problems of the country are there. It's a very wealthy country. If you can govern our wealth well, they are very resourceful, hardworking Nigerians. If you can motivate them to be productive, the people are cooperative and they are generous, so you do not abuse the kindness of the people and their patience. So some of these ideas, we can listen to it. I am more interested in, if I have to choose between removing Tinubu in 2027 or improving Tinubu in 2025, I will rather improve Tinubu in 2025 to see that people don't suffer and that this country does not go into doldrums. There are a lot of crises that are facing this country that we monitor on a daily basis that the government doesn't even seem to be aware of. And that is what is worrisome. Okay. They need to wake up. I don't want them to be there. I knew they were not supposed to be there, but they are there now. They need to wake up. But in 2027, Nigeria will have better chance than we have now.
Okay, Prince Adebayo, I want to thank you very much indeed for joining us. Prince Adewole Adebayo is a lawyer and the 2023 presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, and he was talking to me there from our studios in Lagos.